This is Channels Television's Breaking News.
As the sun shines down on UWT's campus, you can't help but wonder, what did it take for every student to get up to this point? Because behind every great student can be found an equally astounding great leader. I'm Kenneth Robertson, your friendly neighborhood student reporter, a prospective IT major, and it is my job to go behind the scenes and seek out what you can do to be a leader on your own road.
So I'm here with Mr. DJ Crisostomo, a pre-college outreach coordinator, and we are here to discuss with him on how a student may choose a pathway or what it takes to be a leader. So the first question I would like to open up with is, what kind of goals or what were you doing when at the cusp of getting out of high school, going into college, trying to find out what kind of career path you would go into?
So I graduated from high school, and 6 days later I started a summer bridge program on the college that I wanted to go to. It was like a 5-week long program, pretty much getting you ready for college. For me, I hadn't actually applied to colleges at that time. I was using that as my, if I finish this, I'm good enough to go to college. So I completed it, got decent grades. It was a residential experience at PLU. That's where I got my undergrad at. And then after that is when I finally actually applied to PLU. It was a little bit, I don't want to say easier to get into college back then, but PLU at the time, and they still do, they have rolling admission. So, but because I applied in like August, I didn't even start until February the next year. So I graduated high school, 6 days later, was on a college campus doing the whole college thing. And then from August until the beginning of February the next year, I was actually a janitor. Actually was a custodian. Then after doing that for a few months, I became a laborer in a stockroom. So like moving boxes, unloading trucks. And I actually liked both being a custodian and being a laborer in a stockroom, but for me, I didn't really see if there was opportunities for upward mobility. The first couple of months, I tried to keep my job actually at the stockroom, but Friday night, Saturday and Sunday all day is just a lot as a college student. So for me, I started after everybody. I had different motivations because I was like, man, I don't want to. Not that again that cleaning toilets is bad, but I was like, I don't know if I want to be doing this for the rest of my life, laboring in this way, because it was cold during the winter, it was wet all the time, going and getting shopping carts. And I already felt my body kind of get beat up. And then I go from that to being in a college setting, working with other leaders. And for me, college was, that's what was told to me that I needed to do. I had really no clue what I wanted to do though. So I didn't really see myself as a leader. I didn't see myself as contributing to society. I saw myself as, I'm doing this because other people are telling me that I need to. And I think even then was when I started being like, well, I want to help out other people that are in similar scenarios like myself. So, yeah.
So I hear you say that you really never really saw yourself as a leader. What would, in your eyes, would be a good leader, and or who was a leader in your eyes?
Yeah, my parents for sure were definitely, still are, leaders to me. I would say because they did what they needed to do and they didn't complain about it. They started with nothing and they created and they got everything that they needed, for themselves. I would say my mentor from high school, super mild-mannered guy. He was a first-gen student himself, grew up in Wyoming, and he was a leader to me because whatever he said he was going to do, he would do it. He was reliable. And I would say my siblings, in their own way, I had 3 older siblings, were always compassionate and considerate in their own way. So to kind of recap with my different leaders that I saw, hardworking, diligent, trustworthy, kept their word, compassionate about other people, and considerate about other people were really the traits that I respected amongst other leaders that I saw. I was never really big into celebrities or athletes, looking at them and kind of idolizing them. I looked at my immediate surroundings and said, these are people I want to be like. So.
And keeping on the subject of leadership and all, as you know, I was a student with you for MSL for about 4 years.
Yeah.
And so my question, I was wondering about it, what made you want to work with MSL?
Yeah.
And the kind of history that you have with it?
Yeah, so both of my nieces, when so I think I can't remember if I shared during her class or not, but my sister passed away in 2004. She left behind 3 kids, and the 2 oldest were just right of age as far as doing after-school programming and summer programming. So I researched and I found MSL, and this was back in the early mid 2000s. So I was actually the person driving them to MSL and dropping them off. So I knew about MSL, for now it's almost a couple decades. And when I was working at the high school, I would send students to apply and sign up for MSL. When I got this opportunity to come work for here, it was actually my mentor that told me about the position. And I knew it was summer programming, and it was something that was totally different than what I was doing as far as STEM outreach, STEM programming, because I never considered myself a science person myself. I never, again, kind of going back to the same thing as view myself as a leader. I never saw myself as a scientist or engineer. And I put my name in the hat. I honestly thought I had no shot. And when I found out what they were looking for, when I was being interviewed by Amanda, being interviewed by the team, they're like, we want somebody that, one, cares about kids, cares about their families, and is willing to provide good feedback. I was like, I can do all those things. I don't know squat about calculus. I don't know how to program anything, but I'm willing to learn. And yeah, it was a privileged spot. And it was the right professional transition for me at the time.
Another question is, how do you know when what you're doing is something that you love or something that you feel like this is something I want to make a career out of?
I know I shared in your class that I talked about working at the juvenile court. I actually liked working there because it was consistent. I actually got really in shape when I worked at the courts. But the thing that sucked was I was locking up kids. So when I applied to go work at the high school, that was a job before this job here at UWT. Shockingly enough, my mentor was actually the one that hired me on. He interviewed me for the position. It would have been a pay cut. It would have, but it was something that I wanted to do. For me, I interviewed with them. He told me on a Monday, you'll find out Friday. I didn't get a call Friday. I got a call the following Monday. I was sick. I was at home. He called. He's like, hey, we'd love to offer you the job. And I remember feeling so happy. Like, you ever seen the Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith?
Yes.
That part where he gets a job?
Mm-hmm.
I felt like that. And I felt like, hell yeah, like, I made it, And I'd be lying if I said that I felt the same way when I got this job, mainly because I thought about what I'd be leaving at the high school. Like, I didn't get a chance, when I came and started working with MSL, I didn't get to see my students graduate. I had to come here in like April to help out with monthly connection events, and I had to help with the summer programming component. So I was torn because I was like, damn, I want to at least finish and see these kids out. And it's safe to say that I don't know if I necessarily love this job. What I do love is my wife. I love my mom. I love being a good godfather. I love jujitsu. I love all the other things besides my job. And for me, it's not so much about trying to find the one thing I'm good at. It's trying to figure out how do I become a better holistic person. I've had, to answer your question, I've had where I love my job, and I had where that's all I identified as. But now I identify as multiple things. You know, I'm a good brother. I like to think I'm a good brother. You gotta ask my siblings about that if I am or not. I like to think I'm a good son. And there was a time in my life where the only thing I wanted to be good at was my job. And, you know, going back to at least to jiu-jitsu, I was so good at my job that my health deteriorated because of it. And I think at times, just like with love, it can be a double-edged sword, because if you love something so much, you can neglect other things. For me, it's more so, can I do this in the allotted time that I'm getting paid for and not hate it, versus do I love this? What do I love? I love seeing former MSL students on campus. I love seeing when former MSL students aren't here, but they come back and they're like, hey, I'm doing this now. I love when I work with middle school kids and they're just like, this is so cool. I never realized that this is an option for me. Do I love waking up in the morning? No. Do I love, you know, having to plan stuff for 100+ kids in the summer? There's times that some of it sucks. Like the logistics of it is really hard. Do I love working with adults that don't like to do their job? No. Do I love, you know, having to be the disciplinarian? No. But I like to believe that there are other things that I love more than my job. And even though I'm, you know, under the age of 40, I've done nonprofit stuff, you know, with Fab 5. I've done community stuff outside of that. I've done advocacy stuff in Washington, D.C. And at the end of the day, I get to go home to my wife. I get to be with my mother whenever I want to. I get to spend time with my godchildren. And that to me is more important than any accomplishment or career credential.
So in your, based on the story that you had, what do you define for yourself, or in general, what do you define as being successful? With the class being named Husky to Success, this is obviously a big theme that we have about it.
It's funny because I used to think that having the money to do what you wanted was being successful. I used to think getting the job that you wanted meant success. I used to think getting the degrees. I used to think having a nice car. I used to think having a, you know, benefits what was success. And while those things are, I feel like I know more people that are good at their job, but they're better human beings. They're the people that won't cut me off in the parking lot. They're the people that, as I'm walking across campus and I'm going into the mattress factory, they're the ones that are going to hold the door for me. Success to me is a person that, when they are struggling, is still kind and compassionate, and whenever they get to where they want, they're still kind and compassionate. It sounds super corny and cliche, but success is what you make it for yourself. For me, it's I consider myself a huge winner in a lot of ways because of the person I'm married to. A huge success because of, you know, who my parents were, who my siblings are, you know, and I also really don't give a shit what other people think. And my measurement of success is going to be different from you. It's going to be different from everybody else. And I would say when you find success, you stop giving a fuck about what other people's measurements are. Because you could go off and get the degree, you could get that job, you could become whatever you want career-wise, but if you're chasing something and then you obtain it, what then? Are you going to try something else? So yeah, for me, my measurement of success is I don't measure it against anybody else's. And I say that from a place of privilege because I have, a master's, I have a bachelor's, I have a career. Like, I have, people that I care for, and both people that care for me. I have a solid support network. I have good credit. I don't have any diseases that I know of. For me, success is not comparing it to somebody else's level or measurement of success.
On the opposite side of the spectrum, what would you define as a failure, if you even have a definition for failure?
I would say a failure for me. I like to believe I'm relatively optimistic, but I'm also realistic. I would say is when somebody is completely apathetic and just doesn't care. They're like, I don't care about you, I don't care about myself, I don't care about the world, I don't care about anything. I think that that's one thing. I think the failure can be when something's in your way and that's the end of you. Like, you're like, oh, there's a barrier in my way, I'm just gonna quit. Like letting the adversity get the better of you. And I don't believe necessarily in pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. I believe that there are things in place that truly prevent people from accomplishing what they want in life or making it harder. Like, I'll never become a professional basketball player. That I know. I knew that way before. Same thing for the NFL, any of those other things. But I like to believe that if I had genuinely tried, even if I didn't accomplish it, it wouldn't have been the end of me. I would have found something else. So, yeah, I would say the definition of a failure is when somebody just quits.
Also, when is a point that you feel that, this is a point where you should, it sounds very negative, but give up, per se, or necessarily cut your losses? And
when and I'll use myself in this scenario, trying to think about what are the reasons why you want to do something, what are the reasons that, if in this state it's for a job, do my goals align with what they want? Do they align with what I want? And are we trying to accomplish the same thing? And if those things don't match up, then maybe it might be time to, for lack of better terms, cut your losses. Even when I think of people that apply for the MSL instructor position, that's probably one of the hardest things to do, because there's, just this year we hired on 12 people. The year before it was 14 because we had 2 robotics assistants. And the amount of times that former students come to me, or friends of mine, or former students that I work with at the high school, and I have to tell them no, or I had to tell them, you didn't even make it past the initial part. I know, I can guess the ramifications of DJ's an asshole. And I'm just kind of like, one, you are entitled to your opinion, but when I think about the full-on skill sets and even the way that we assess as far as skills go, there's so many other factors, and it does not help that of those 12 positions, 50 people are applying for them. And these are people with masters who have decades of experience, or people that have other leadership experiences that we're seeking out in a specific role. But it doesn't make me feel better. I'm just like, I'm still gonna have to tell Kenneth, not this year. I'm still gonna have to tell, somebody else who went through the program, hey, not this year. And it feels like a real backhanded comment to be like, wait, I did this whole program for 4 years, what do you mean I'm not good enough? I'm like, no, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that your goals for wanting to do it and what we're trying to accomplish as a program, they're just different. And I'm definitely not telling you to cut your losses with that, because you're getting your chops up. You're still discovering what you want to do. And I wouldn't be surprised if, you want to go into instructing other MSL students. I wouldn't be surprised too if you do something else technology-wise that impacts people. So there's countless ways. There's countless ways. You know, I think of other people that were in your cohort, and some of them decided, after your summer, it was like we started doing the internship stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Some people were like, nope, I never want to work with kids ever. And some people were like, I never thought about it, but yeah. And this should be the time that you explore. And as far as cutting losses, as far as, fuck it, I'm going to do something else. Just because somebody says no doesn't ever, I don't believe it means no forever. Timing, at least for a majority of things, timing sometimes just has to be right. And either way, even if you were to be like, DJ, I want to apply for other stuff with me, I'm like, cool. Don't let me be the one that stops you from wanting to pursue something else. Because even if an opportunity doesn't present it with me, you can always do it with somebody else. So, but yeah, to answer your question, checking what your goals are, understanding clearly what the organization you're trying to do stuff with, and seeing if both of those things align. So really triangulating why you want to do that. And it's tough because you have to assess your own stuff, you have to assess theirs, and then you have to have the experience to match. And if that's not the case, for me, not a very good basketball player, I don't know very many people are going to pick up a close to 40-year-old man that wants to play basketball.
So one thing that we have, a little key term that we have is noise, which is kind of terms that, or claims that whether they are true or not,
Mm-hmm.
may affect you in a negative way, and how may you be able to deal with that.
Uh-huh.
So the question is, what kind of noise did you hear along your pathway as you walked?
I think a lot of the noise I heard was my own self-doubt. And that was a combination of middle school, high school, college, graduate school. I can pinpoint a couple times where other people verbalize doubt in me. But the noise for sure was my own doubt in myself. Imposter syndrome, stereotype threat, all of those things, I think I fed myself. Like, you're not good enough for this. You can't do this. You're not smart enough for that. What are you doing that for? You're not the kind of person that does that. Why are you doing this instead? I think the other part too that I would definitely verbalize and heard, or I had verbalized and heard, was, but you're from Guam, or you're an islander. Why are you dressing that way? Why are you acting? Why are you talking this way? Ooh, or you think you're smarter than everybody else? And I definitely don't want to overgeneralize, but a majority of the people that I grew up with, that were my peers, that were the same ethnic background as mine, didn't pursue a lot of the same stuff that I did. Nonprofit work, working in higher ed, working in education, working with kids. And I had a lot of identity issues in that I never was really fully a military kid. I wasn't ever fully a civilian. I wasn't ever fully American enough for some people. I wasn't fully Islander enough for some people. Even with the timeline that I started college, I felt offbeat because I was like, man, everybody else has already been here since September. I'm starting in February. So I always felt like I didn't belong. And then as I've just gotten older, I really don't give a shit. I really am just kind of like, yeah, there might be noise, but I don't know, I just tune it out. And I listen to what I want to hear. Now I know, even if I'm not smart enough, I can teach myself. Or I can learn it. Or I'm willing to hear constructive criticism. I'm willing to hear brutal criticism. Because at the end of the day, I still don't give a shit. But I don't care what other people think about me, but I care about the person that I want to portray to other people. So now that for me is more important than giving a hoot about what people say. So as far as noise, I think it's too easy to generalize and say to tune it out, but start getting selective. For me, is what's helped.
So, in your pathway, you obviously had a lot of things that happened that changed your pathway, or people who had influence on you.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say had the most impact on you that made you who the person you are right now?
I think the biggest thing that I've gained because of the stuff I've lost. Whether it's moving, losing friends, losing family members, through things like death, losing relationships by, one person decides they're going to do this instead, ex-girlfriends even. It's funny, everything I've gained is because of what I've lost. And it makes me appreciate things that, 20 years ago, things that I would have took for granted. As you get older, pain it makes you very acutely aware of how to move. When you have to tell yourself how to walk so you don't tear anything else again, it makes you appreciate being able to walk. That's not something I cared about 20 years ago, let alone 10 years ago. I everything I have gained, it's unfortunately because of things that I've lost.
One thing that, as we get older, we always kind of start reflecting on who we are, what kind of got to us, to this point.
Mm-hmm.
And in turn, we also kind of, while we're reflecting, kind of think like, God, I wish I would have known that. What is something that you know now, after so far, that you wish you would have known when you were younger?
I might not have thought I was smart enough, but I had the work ethic to learn something. I wish I would have told the noise. I wish I would have listened to that instead of the doubt. I mentioned, I think, in your class that I never took any AP or honors classes. I wish I did, just even if I bombed them, to say I did. I wish I would have tried taking a computer science class in college seriously, instead of being like, I'm freaked out by Excel, I don't know how to do this. I wish I wouldn't have thought of myself as being a smart kid. I wish I would have relied on the fact that I was a hard-working individual. I wish, if there's anything, not a regret, but if there's anything I wish I would have told myself, that would have been it.
And on a closing note, with many students going to college and continuing their lives, even perhaps past college, going into a master's, what is some advice that you would probably perhaps give to someone who's walking their own road?
Be considerate of others. And I say that as a person that doesn't give a shit about what other people think. I'm not going to walk into a funeral and say, I don't give a shit about you all people. I'm going to walk in and know my surroundings. When I say be considerate of others, that's both a good thing and a preparing for the negative. Lockdowns was not a word when I was growing up. Now we have to worry about active shooters in schools. Know your surroundings. And just I believe that when you're considerate of other people, it makes you realize that as you're going through your journey, you're not the only one actually on that journey. Even as you're going through on that road and it feels lonely, look up, lift your head up, and be like, oh, other people are struggling too. It actually gave me a lot of comfort knowing that. Even the people in your classes, like your class specifically, the success class right now. Some people might be taking it because they need 2 credits. Some people might genuinely be like, I don't know what to do with my life. I'm here because somebody told me I should be here. Other people might have it completely scripted out, and that's cool. But I genuinely think that being considerate of others makes you realize that you're not in this by yourself.
Well, I would like to thank you for your time, and I know you have a very busy schedule, so I really appreciate this time to interview you.
Yeah, you're welcome, man.